Loud and Quiet presents Midnight Chats.
Evening listeners, Greg here. This is Midnight Chats. Thanks for joining us for another artist in conversation and tuning in. Do you tune into a podcast? Maybe not. But wherever you are and wherever you're listening to this, cheers for joining us. Before we get stuck into this week's Midnight Chats, can I just say what a total privilege it was to have Viv Albertine speaking to Stuart on last week's episode. She's incredible and what a powerful listen. Do seek that out if you haven't already. So thank you, Viv. When we started this, we hoped, but never imagined we'd probably get to a point where we'd have such icons to come and talk to us. Now, we always try and put a range of voices and experiences on the podcast. That's what keeps it interesting for us and hopefully for you too. In that spirit, this is something totally different from last week. My guest tonight is Kojey Radical, the East London-based British Ghanaian rapper, visual artist, poet, head of an arts collective, fashion designer, basically a master of many trades. He is a connected guy, or rather he's made himself a connected guy over the last 5 years or so that he's been sharing his creations. It was a while back, 2014, when he released his debut project, Dear Daisy Opium. Just a year later, it was his EP 23 Winters that introduced him to more people. Since then, there's been a steady stream of releases from Kojey. The 13-track release In God's Body in 2017 was magnificent, and the single Water that he did with Swindle and Mahalia last year. He's also just dropped the video for 25, which is the track that we talk about in this, and it came out at the start of the year, and it is very good, so do have a look at that. Other artists have noticed his talents as well, and we'd be here all night if I listed off the people that Kojey has collaborated with. I'll leave that for the conversation instead, but that's basically a testament to how respected and well regarded he is. As I speak to you now, it's the end of March, and this chat was recorded in the middle of February, a couple of weeks before the Oscars. I mention that because he'd recently met and interviewed Spike Lee, and Spike's movie Black Klansman was up for Best Picture. Kojey came into our office in East London. He arrived on time, but then again, there was no excuse for him not to, because he literally lives less than a mile away, about 5 stops on the bus. It's one road. It was dark, raining buckets outside, but Kojey arrived looking very stylish, wearing sunglasses, a beanie, cool yellow jacket, and I thoroughly enjoyed meeting him. We laughed a lot. A quick mention, if you are new to Midnight Chats, come on in. We are halfway through Series 7 now. 5 more of these to come in the run. Some brilliant guests. Subscribe if you don't already, so you get every new episode that we put out on Thursday at midnight. And like and rate and comment, hopefully nice things, wherever you're listening to this. Enough from me. Let's get on to Kojey, our guest on episode 68 of Midnight Chats. And Vice, if you're listening, we're ready when you are. That will make sense in a minute. Kojey, welcome to our podcast, Midnight Chats.
Thank you for having me.
Been excited about having you on, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Because, yeah. I mean, obviously, I've been watching some of your interviews, and you've always, you seem like you kind of enjoy, having a platform and kind of and doing this kind of thing and getting out there and speaking to different people and different artists and things like that. It seems to be something you kind of relish.
Yeah, I feel like it's part of the process. I think you spend so much time very insular and in your own head and in your own thoughts and in rooms listening to things on loop that once they're interpreted, they're kind of just interpreted. So when you get a chance to, talk about things or put more context to things, it helps shape things in the mind of the listener, which I enjoy.
the sofa you're sat on there, we've recorded quite a lot of these podcasts in this room, and we've had people from all over the world, really. North America, South America, Asia, even as far as Australia. We had Courtney Barnett on the podcast a little while ago, literally the other side of the world. You are definitely the most local person that we've ever had on Midnight Chats, because you're from just down the road, right?
Yeah, I'm from Hoxton.
Cool. Which, if people are listening to this and they don't know too much about, where we're doing this, just to paint the picture, we're recording this in the Loud and Quiet offices in Hackney. Hoxton is less than a mile away.
Yeah, it's probably like, you could probably throw a stone.
You could probably see like your window or something from here. Yeah. If the weather wasn't so miserable, you could have walked here in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I didn't, but I could have. I'm just contemplating whether I'll walk home, but I probably won't.
Yeah, it gets soaked.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about growing up in Hoxton. It's one of those places that it might be a familiar name to some people, some of our listeners, but it still always sounds like a bit of a curious place to maybe grow up in, because people possibly immediately associate it with nightlife and kind of trendy bars or coffee shops or whatever. So what was the reality like of growing up in Hoxton in East London?
It was different, man. It definitely weren't good. Like, I don't like to paint a picture of it being some kind of like hellhole. It wasn't necessarily that, but the Hoxton everybody knows now definitely wasn't what it was then. I think, speaking more positively though, there was definitely much more of a sense of community. And it felt like majority of the places around there were very kind of like homegrown businesses. And eventually you start to see that change and kind of fade out. But I feel like what Hoxton is kind of hasn't changed in one sense. They put a lick of paint on it. It was probably part of the reason why my outlook on life is so eclectic. Because you see everything, do you know what I mean? You see everything from like deep poverty to like flamboyant ego, sharing the same pavement. And I think it was an interesting vantage point to have so young.
Without getting too deep into the gentrification debate, It sounds like you feel like as money's moved in certain parts of Hoxton at least, because it's not all the same, the soul hasn't necessarily moved out of the area at the same time, or it has to a certain extent, or just changed?
Yeah, well, there's certain things that I would attribute to the soul. I think the market. I lived like very close to like Hoxton Market, and I remember as a kid it used to feel like the most like hustle and bustle environment, and that just started to thin out a little bit as gentrification started to take place, and again more buildings with purpose that meant things for the community, like. The cafes and stuff are great and it's cool or whatever, but like it's not even like they're hiring local youth. You feel me? So it's not beneficial to anybody from there. And really, I think that's where most areas should begin. Do you know what I mean? And start. But I'm not the mayor
yet. One day. We had a novelist on the podcast a while ago, and he was talking about his involvement in politics, and I think he was young mayor for his local constituency at one point. And that was interesting. He was talking about a similar point and how like he felt like he wanted to get involved on that front, and he learned a lot from doing that. He kind of stepped away from doing that for a little bit, but it was interesting talking to him about a similar subject. Yeah,
I think it's necessary. I think people forget how much love the young have for London and for where they grew up, and why actually when it was time to fight back, they were so passionate, because where we're from shapes us. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't feel like I would be completely who I am if I didn't grow up in Hoxton.
You still based around there? You and your family?
Yeah, all my family lives in Hoxton.
And again, for people, if you don't necessarily know the area too well, we're talking like pretty much central London, certainly like middle of London, really. You could get on a bus and be at Oxford Street in... Yeah, exactly. What are you like now that you've been doing a lot of travelling with your music the last few years? When you leave the city... and you're saying more rural areas or in smaller cities, are you hungry to get back to the energy of the city and the urban environment? Or are you, as you get a little bit older, do you enjoy getting a little bit of time and space of being outside of that environment?
I love the space. I love the time, definitely.
You're going to buy a farm, aren't you, Kojey?
I couldn't be bothered. That's the problem. I can't be bothered. I'm just like the definition of the quiet life. But like, it's cool. I know that it's going to be very hard for me to find somewhere else in the world that I'd want to settle, just because I'm used to the hustle and bustle. And a part of not having it makes me nervous. Like if I'm in spaces that are a bit too quiet, I just keep thinking someone's gonna murder me and no one will be around to help. Do you know what I mean? Or just like the idea of being too distant from family or familiarity. But I love traveling. I'm like, luckily, it was weird. Like the traveling side of music came from at a very like weird point in my career. So like, it forced me to open my eyes. Do you know what I mean? And now I.
What do you mean by that? Just like it came at a strange time in the sense that that was part of it you weren't necessarily thinking about before?
It's like I'm trying to, I don't know if I'm talking in the context of like my life or like music and how I feel about this thing, but like, because every time I say something, people go, really? Or yeah? But I know how it feels on the inside, you get me? So when I started traveling with music, it was at a time where I felt like, even though I was being embraced, my music had kind of gone cold and I wasn't getting the love that I thought I would get in the UK. So like I thought, well, if it ain't happening here, it ain't really about to happen nowhere else. And then all of a sudden, like literally out of nowhere, we just started getting booking requests from like the most random parts of the world. And we was like, well, let's go, fuck it. Went to like Bulgaria, New Zealand, Melbourne, Sydney, Moscow, Johannesburg. Where else did we go? Copenhagen, like just wherever. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Brazil, we did like 4 shows in Brazil. Majority of them sold out. I remember the last one was the Johannesburg one, and that was like 600 people sold out. First time in the country. And it was crazy to me to know that, like, again, when you drop a stone in the river, like, you're going to see a local ripple. You feel me? You don't know how far that wave travels. And it was an opportunity to see how far it traveled, so it kind of reinvigorated me. So by the time I went through that experience, I think I had finished In God's Body, and it was out, and I knew there was like some like recalibrations I had to make sure everything made sense. But now I find myself traveling in order to kind of spark that same inspiration that I probably would have got just walking around the ends. Do you know what I mean?
Did you find yourself almost having to make a bit of a leap of faith? So somebody books you for a show in Bulgaria and you're like, I just need to Google map this place that we're about to fly into.
Where's Sophia?
And did it explode your expectations? You turn up and you're like, this is a venue full of
that
hundreds
show
of people that are pumped.
Yeah, that show in particular was crazy because the guy that booked me was a personal fan. Like, that
So it was a DIY show in many respects. He just
essentially, he was like, I've got money, I love music, in particular I love your music, and I wanted to put on a show for Bulgaria, so I'm paying for everything. Bring the whole band, bring everybody, bring the tour manager, bring everything, and we're just going to do this show in Sofia. As soon as we landed, he came and got us, and he had like a million questions about a million different songs, like different moments, like specific moments, and I was like, you are really a fan. And it helped me appreciate the whole thing a lot more. And I've been excited to go back to Bulgaria ever since. It's one of them like, oh yeah, like, the Bulgaria's gonna be lit when I go back. Like,
just like make sure it's number one on the European tour.
Yeah, everyone's like, Bulgaria. I go, yo, Bulgaria? People don't even know. There's Bulgarian grime.
Really? Tell me about Bulgarian grime.
Well, so the opening act was this Bulgarian rapper. And we went in to check him out, and it was like, yo, like, he's really spitting. And then Zulu was with me opening up, and I think something happened in his set, and he invited the guy back on, and the guy just started spitting to grime tempos, like, on the spot. There's Russian grime as well. Okay. There's Russian grime. There's Brazilian grime.
Basically what we're doing here is brainstorming like a new Vice documentary series.
I know, yeah. Trust me, they should have been done that. But like, grime's heavy. The culture of grime is heavy in Brazil. They love that. They love that shit. And like, it's weird because like, I didn't come up making grime, but I grew up in London, innit? Grime is within you. It's like, if you grow up in the heart of Bushwick, Brooklyn, you are gonna have hip hop in your heart. You're gonna have Biggie in your heart. If you grow up in the middle of East London, you are going to have grime in your heart. You're going to have SQB in your heart. You're going to have that. It's going to pulse through you. So, like, as much as I didn't necessarily make grime music, as soon as I landed in these countries and they understood our culture, it was way easier to, I guess, embed myself in what was going on. So I remember even in Brazil, we had done the festival that we kind of got booked for, and it was like, it's quiet, like it weren't lit. And the promoter that we was with was just like, you guys want to do the parties, don't you? We was like, yep. Like, do you know what I mean? And he's more or less like driven us out to like quite close to the favelas. And was like, yeah, we're just going to do a set tonight here. And we was like, what? And I remember it was me, my DJ Selector Suave, and Pote, who's a producer and DJ, works closely with Benji B. And we took a picture outside like and sent it to my tour manager like, we're here tonight. Just, like,
we're going off grid.
Yeah, we're going off the grid. Like,
if you don't hear from me in 48 hours,
basically,
cool.
We've walked in and it's just like, it's a movie. Do you know what I mean? It's literally a movie. And we was like walking around trying to take it in. Everybody's speaking pure Portuguese. It's not like every other person can speak English. So we're like, And then we'll walk like, they're playing like a lot of Brazilian funk, but also like a lot of like trap. And then all of a sudden, we just hear, I can't remember what grime tune it was. I think it might have been P's and Q's or something like that. And we've all just looked at each other and went, oh, it's lit. Like, do you know what I mean? Oh, it's lit. Like, we good. Gone in there, wrecked it, like, turned it into like some they split the middle open because there was no stage. So they split the middle open and it was like people on me.
You were in the middle.
I was in the middle and just barring off, and there's like people just in my face, just like love it, like going off. And then news kind of traveled throughout Brazil and we got booked for some other ones. We ended up flying to Rio and did a party there called I Hate Mondays. Insane. I saw a kid get chucked across the room, like mosh pit style, just lifted and like catapulted when I think After Winter dropped or something like that. And just seeing those kind of reactions to my music made me understand it in a completely different light, because I think London caught me as a poet. Do you know what I mean? They was introduced to me as a poet. When they hear my name, the first thing that probably comes to mind is poet. So the way they approach my shows is very subdued in terms of the energy that I require to feed off in order to create a better show. But I feel like all of that changed when we did the Coco show in November.
I've seen footage from that and it did go off.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah. That sounds really exciting, like going around the world. Like a lot of the time, artists will just turn up, they'll play their show, they'll go into their dressing room, they get on whatever mode of transport they're taking to go to the next place. It sounds like you've managed to have an experience the last few years where, like you say, you've managed to discover Bulgarian grime, Russian grime, some Brazilian grime, like these scenes. Do you feel the impulse to do anything with that? Like, I mean, I joke about the kind of series, but like you've made tour documentaries before. Would you consider maybe developing that idea in some way?
100%. I feel like more time, I just wait for people to understand that I'm a genius. And then approach me with the like sufficient deal to incorporate said genius. And I'm right there, I work hard, I show up on time. It's no question mark. I think it's just more so just going like, let's just cut the fat. Like, I know we measure everything on this metric and that metric and da-da-da-da. No, we have a person that actually, for whatever reason, can just float through any walk of life and be embraced in a way that makes me now a part of that experience for however long I'm there. This should be a thing. But I don't know, you might have the genius gene too, because you saw it was an idea, but we're just still waiting. Waiting for them.
We need to put these genius genes together and find somebody with
essentially
some belief and some cash.
Belief and a check, and we can move, we can talk. I'm like hoping to do more stuff with like way more platforms. Hopefully, maybe some more stuff with Vice. We did that really cool. We did I interviewed Spike Lee.
I was going to ask about that later. I mean, we might as well talk about it now. What did you take away from that experience of meeting Spike Lee? And I mean, I don't know how much interviewing you've done before. This is obviously switching places, so to speak, to what you're normally used to, but it did feel very natural. Like you kind of, did a good job with it. What was it like spending that hour with him, half an hour, whatever it was in the end?
Do you know what it is? I've always hated interviews but loved conversations. Okay. So with that, when I was in an interview process, majority of the time it ended up turning into a conversation just because that's just the way I try to steer things. So at least I'm not on edge the whole time. And I had done... Somebody had asked me to be involved in this Sky Atlantic series that was going on for a series called Gorilla. And we did like a mini documentary series with SBTV on that one. And then I did a collaborative song with Rebecca Ferguson at the end of it. It was kind of like a very like interesting process. But yeah, like I did one of the last interviews with Darkest How. Like we interviewed everybody from the cast, Frida Pinto, like everyone. It was lit. And I think maybe that kind of showed people that, oh, he's good at the whole like interview thing. Then how did that come about? Jenna, my amazing publicist, said we should go into a meeting at Vice. And I went and sat down with Alex. And he's sound.
Yeah.
Sound lad.
And then a couple of weeks later, he says Spike Lee's doing something.
Well, yeah, he was like, do you want to interview Spike Lee? I said, yes. We've gone cinema, watched the film, me and Alex. Liked it. Come back. I'm sitting in the room now waiting for him to come. Like, this is like a few days later, so I've had like a couple of days to digest it. I'm sitting in the room. And I have one Long Island iced tea, then another one. Immediately afterwards. And I was fine after that. Do you know what I mean? I was ready to go. And he's come in and he's only really meant to do about 20, 30 minutes in each room, but he did about 45 minutes with me, just talking. And you know, for the most part, because again, it was an interview process. So like, one, like I got a lot of time to have like a deep personal moment. But meeting certain people, you kind of take away certain things from their aura and their presence. And being around him kind of always taught me, like, it doesn't matter how far you've gone. Do you know what I mean? Like, what you've contributed to the scale of, or how much people value it, there's always more to do. Do you know what I mean? There's always more to get done. And that humility and that kind of like head down, like, here's another product, here's another conversation, here's another contribution to what I feel is important while I'm alive. And I think, yeah, I just try and take those kind of energies and put them into what I'm trying to do.
2 quick questions off the back of that. By the time people hear this, Black Klansman might have won an Oscar. Because it's nominated for Best Picture. Would you like to see that happen?
That'd be good.
Yeah.
That'd be good. I've got a sick little GIF meme of me and Spike laughing. Yeah, so if it wins, then I'm just going to drop that and be like, congrats, Spike.
In a timely moment and just watch the internet like turn up to that.
Congrats, Spike.
my old pal.
Yeah, my old pal, my jigger. He knows me.
We're talking in a minute about all the different things that you do. You're a bit of a polymath, you kind of, in terms of your art and what you create. Have you always been quite fearless about basically trying something new? Because often fear does kind of hold people back, and they sort of think not everybody would basically have got in that car and driven to the almost favelas and turned up at a show and just been like, okay, I'm going to go with this, and this might be an amazing experience. Some people would have been like, absolutely not, no way. So have you always lived without fear, or was there a moment when you were like, I need to kind of let go and basically I'll give most things a go at least?
What have you got to lose? We're here until we're not here. And I've seen a lot of people die. So for me, the process of living is literally to experience. And if you have an idea, you are a vessel for their idea. So in a way, you kind of have to give life to it. And that was just my process for being on the earth. Just giving life to your ideas and seeing what happens with them. I didn't know. I knew I wasn't going to be regular because I just couldn't be bothered. I kept getting fired from everything.
What are the jobs that you started doing early on?
Yeah, I got fired from like every job I worked, per se. Maybe like bar one.
Is that because you knew it wasn't your passion? And
I don't know. I thought I was a good employee. I thought I had some reputable skills. I thought I was all right to have around. Clearly not. Like, got fired. Like, I don't know what happened, but I always knew, like, I'm not the guy that's taking more hours. Don't matter how broke I am. Like, can you cover this? No, can't cover it. Can't cover it. Because my time is my time, you feel me? And, like, if I keep thinking that it's only, like, my personal time is only worth the amount an hour that they suggest it is, then I'll never be able to kind of get out this phase of accepting that and wanting to push past that. So my time was whatever I did in like the days I had off, I did everything. Like, you get me? Like, I was trying to do everything. Otherwise, you just get lost. It's so easy to get lost.
It raises an interesting question now, because presume you feel like you're in a fortunate position whereby you've turned your passions into your career, right? So your job is your passion, be it music, making videos, interviewing Spike Lee, illustrations, etc. All of the different elements of what you put together to create what it is, your universe, what you do. When it becomes your job and it's your passion at the same time, that brings up its own challenges, doesn't it? Because the thing that you just mentioned there is like when you're doing a regular job and it's like, you know, you're clocking in for 8 hours a day and you're kind of like, that's my job. In my brain, I can like siphon that off. That's over here. My passions are over here. When those two things come together, it becomes more difficult, presumably, because you're like always on. So how do you have ways of managing that in your...
Not switching off?
Yeah.
Nah.
Okay.
I smoke a lot of weed. Pretty much, like that. I laugh about that because like it was kind of, there was a point where I was like, yeah, I'm done, not smoking no more, finished. This was like maybe 3 years ago, and then the next day I think I started a project, smoked every day since then, because my brain never turned off. If I ever got a free moment, I had to think about. I was independent for 5 years. I was the brain behind everything. Do you get me? I was pushing everything, making everything stay afloat. So I had to worry about everything from taxes to insurance to silly. Do you get me? Like everything. So it was long. Like now I don't have to worry about that. I think I probably made some of the sickest music I've ever made in my life, like in the last few months, just because I ain't.
Yeah, because parts of those things are taken care of, and there's part of you don't have to concern yourself with some of those logistics.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, I find that like, I don't know. I was always just more so the type like, do what you got to do, like, handle what you got to do, just boom, and don't worry about no one else's opinion. You feel me? So I'm not the showy guy. I'm not the show off like. All the things I've like done in my life, I could easily be I could gloat every day. It's pointless. You get me? Like, you only win with more work. So like, you just got to keep going to work. Yeah.
Let's talk about music.
All right.
Let's start by talking about 25, which was the track that you started 2019 by releasing. Yeah. And to my mind, at least, it felt like you taking stock, like kind of reflecting on the past 25 years, because you just turned 26, am I right? Yeah. So this was you kind of taking a moment to just sort of like reflect on years ago, but also kind of what's happened in a particularly busy spell for you the last 2 or 3 years, like we've already just been talking about. Am I reading that right? Is that kind of how you felt about that track? Tell me a little bit more 100%. About 25.
25 was that. It was like, well, you've been here 25 years, bro.
You got your quarter century up.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you're here. What does it feel like? For me, I always go, what does it feel like? And then that dictates the production. So it was bright. It was a good feeling because, again, like a lot of my friends didn't make it this far. You get me? And like, you want a way to celebrate that in a way that honors their time on earth and what it's taught you moving forward. The overall tone of what I was actually rapping about outside of the music was really sad. So I like our whole thing at the moment has just been like juxtaposing the memories of me being in like a depressive state with the optimism that I now want to have in life. I'm kind of meshing that together with the music. So it's interesting. You know what's funny? Is that whenever I make songs like that, like I think to myself, like what's like the 2014 crop? Gonna think about this one. A sold out. Why is it all like trappy? Why is it so bright? Fucking idiots. Like I love everybody. I remember I used to, cause I didn't get fucking mountains of attention, in my opinion anyway. But so I listened to everything. If I saw somebody did like a project review on YouTube, it don't matter if it had 25 views, I was view 26. I saw it early, you get me? And I remember when In God's Body dropped, there was just like some old stands. Let me not even call them that, that's rude. But like, just old supporters that was like, we missed the experimental production of like his earlier work. And I goes, what earlier work? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I made every beat. Like, not even like I made like, but we made every beat as we went along. There was no like, today we're moving into this world. We just made music. Like, clearly you just like one type of music and not the other. So if you just like that stuff, then I've got music. There's music there. Listen to that stuff bare times. Those songs don't have a million plays. If you really liked it that much, you would listen to it a million times.
How are you feeling going into your 26th year then? You celebrate your birthday at the start of the year, don't you? So just into January.
Yeah.
What did you do for your birthday, by the way? Were you at home? Were you
sat
away?
in the heat.
Did
I was
you?
in Ghana, yeah.
Oh, did you? Tell me about that trip.
I went there for just after Christmas to just celebrate New Year's, do my birthday out there, chill, catch up with my cousin who makes music as well. Just embrace, I'm learning to refamiliarize myself with Ghana because I spent so much time here. I know I'm originally from Ghana. At some point I would like to go spend an extended amount of time there, but there's some kind of like acclimatization that you have to do just before that. So it's just making Ghana a normal place for me to go to. Do you know what I mean? Making it home. Do you know what I mean?
So when you got back, you kind of been busying yourself with making more music. What's happened? The first kind of chunk of this year, what's that been spent doing predominantly?
I was in Sweden for about a week.
Okay, so you went from hot to cold then. That's brutal.
Yeah, I
Sweden
came
must
back.
have been cold.
Yeah, it was. I came back from Ghana. I think I did like a week or 2 weeks here, working on music just straight, and then just flew to Sweden. It was snowing. Just locked myself in hostel.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, just wrote things down that might never get used.
Considering that you do a lot of collaborative work, when you're writing your stuff, your parts, do you still work best in isolation, do you think?
If people really want me to like dig deep, yeah, fuck off for a little bit. If you want me to style a verse out, man, bring everybody in the room. I'll just try to out-rap everyone. But like, for like depth, yeah. Some of the deeper records I wrote like by myself at like 5 a.m. cold. Do you know what I mean? I like being cold when I write sad shit.
It's been interesting to note the last few years that you've worked with so many different artists. I mean, I could probably spend about 10 minutes of this podcast just listing the people that you've worked with. Well, actually, I can name a few that are kind of, different, people would consider have different vibes. From people like Goldlink to Getz, Ray Black, Michaela Cole, Tom Grennan, AJ Tracy, Obonjaya, Swindle, Wretch. Like, these are people that all have different approach to what they do. So I wanted to ask, when it comes to working with another artist, that's a lot of disparate sounds that those artists create. There must be something that you always look for in order for you to go, yeah, okay, I'm gonna do something with this person. What is that thing?
Vibrations. That's it. Just get in the room and vibrate. That's it. All of them collaborations. Like, there weren't no deep thought of like, yo, we should get this person, or like either I holler them or they holler me. But until then, man's just by the phone, innit? Once the phone call comes in, it comes in. Like, I'm trying to think, like Goldlink, I met Goldlink outside a pub, outside a Barney Artist show in Hoxton on my road. We hung out a few times, got really close. He was working on his album at the time, and he wanted to do some like vignettes, like video vignettes, using some poetry. So we had these little 60-second things directed for us, and then I wrote over the top. But it was like such, like when people say like working with him, he was like, yo, Kojey, I need this. I goes, bet. I've recorded it in a voice note and sent him the voice notes. So he was wherever else in his world. I was literally in my room, barred those things, sent it across. And I didn't expect it to go as far as it did, but it did. It was cool. Tom Grennan, it was interesting because I'd never met him when I worked with him. I worked with a guy called Selassie, producer, who was working with Tom at the time. And they had just done some random demos. And one of the random demos was Footsteps, like the beat, as raw as it was, and it had that thing that, I'm trying to da-da-da-da. And I was like, keep all of this and send me this beat. I'm going off tonight. And I sent Selassie a voice note that same night. The songs come out, It's obviously like blown up, done what it's done. And I met Tom in a smoking area of some random ass event and just hit it off immediately. Like that was immediately my guy. Like, you get me? Like,
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. I feel like life and the vibrations and energy just force people to connect. Do you know what I mean? Like Wretch, I remember when I went to Wretch's like writing camp, it was like the biggest learning experience ever because he is a master at work. He is literally a master at work. And it's like, you feel like you're Karate Kid, wait till you see Mr. Miyagi. You feel me? Like, that's Wretch. Who else? Like,
What are those writing camps like? Because like a few years ago, I went to one out in West London. It was actually for a Justin Bieber record, so a different vibe altogether. But like, effectively, again, if people don't know what a writing camp is, often in the run up to somebody putting an album together, it's basically a meeting of minds. It's put some heads together, see what we can come up with, and like spark some ideas. Basically, the one that I attended was in it was like a residential studio, like an old house. And imagine this mansion where in each different room of this place, there was a couple of different writers all getting together, were given a kind of theme, given us some ideas and said, right, let's meet back again at lunchtime, see what we've all got, see if there's something that we want to like develop. And then by dinner time, we've got a new song.
Yeah.
So how have you found that experience of doing those things?
Wretch's one was the first one I went to.
Okay.
And like, that would be a slow process for him.
I can imagine.
That would be intensely slow. Like, I think he had two, I only went to one of them. But the one I went to was Play Deep Studios, Finessing Angel or King's Cross or something like that. It was like might have been 4 rooms, a producer in at least maybe 1 or 2 producers in every room. Writers floating about in between each rooms, laying things down as they go. And he literally walks into the room while standing up and will rap to the song. No pen, no paper. Rap to the song on the spot. You hand him like a microphone that you can hold in his hand. He'll rap a demo and leave the room, go into the next room and rap the next song. And what the song in this room could be a party song. The song in the next room could be a deep song about him and his mother or something like that. The one in that one could be about him and his girl. The one in that one could just be another party rhythm, and he can do them simultaneously. And I think for me, that was like such a massive learning experience because it was like, it taught me to understand, like, first, set the vibe. Get the vibe set. It's not a race to finish the tune, but if you could at least set a good precedent for the tune and you know it's a banger, it will always be a banger. You can't just not be a banger one day. You can go back in and really add the context and add the depth. So that's been like one of the things I took into my process at the moment. It was just like, set vibes. Vibe. Now I've got too many vibes, but like, now we just...
Back off with some vibes.
Yeah, well, like, we were sitting there going like, well, I mean, like, we could drop like 3 albums today, but like, we're just not going to. You get what I mean? Like, we're just not going to do that. I feel like you only get X amount of chances at a body of work that represents you, and I feel like people have lost that need to have a great body of work. Now it's like, how many songs can you fit? How many of them will immediately be bangers? And the rest of them we can generate streams off the back of the ones that are bangers.
Do you aspire to... I've read interviews with you in the past where you say when it's time to deliver a debut album, that it has to be the right body of work that represents you. Will you just take your time over that until it's the right thing? Or it's interesting hearing you say that you do aspire to want to do that because, let's face it, like, the album as a format, if that's what we're going to call it, it's not a necessity anymore, is it? You could just forever just keep releasing bangers, like individual tunes.
100%.
So why do it? Where does the desire come from?
I feel like I've just like sunk into like the most hipster version of me that is like fucking incomplete belief of like post-modernity. And just the idea that like nothing is new. It's all just things that have been done before. And then on top of that, nothing is. So nobody wants to be labeled as anything, or nothing wants to be labeled as anything, because it creates too harsh of a definition and a box to sit in. And I might never drop an album. It don't mean people won't get music, but I feel like people really got to ask themselves, what is the point of things these days? Because I've never not gone to click somebody's music because it was just the EP, or it was just the album, or it's just a mixtape. I want to hear it. And if I like it from top to bottom, I'm going to listen to it from top to bottom. If I don't, I'm going to separate it anyway. So an album can quickly become 3 or 4 songs in somebody's playlist the next day.
Yeah, of course.
You get me?
You're not in control of that, are you? So
there's nothing you can do. So, like, even now, even entering the new situation that we got, it's like, just keep telling them, like, yeah, the album's coming, but for now we're doing this. So they're like, is this the album? And I go, no, it's not. They're like, how are we going to market it? As not the album. Huh? That's it. It's not the album. Okay.
just keep going.
Yeah.
I'll tell you when I'm ready.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been interesting, and I imagine possibly a bit frustrating from your point of view, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, of being sometimes held up in terms of interviews and features and wherever it may be, media, press, about being a so-called like political rapper making political music. How frustrating can it be when you get kind of tarred with a brush when ultimately you're writing output, be it songs or whatever, outlet of creativity that is ultimately just a reflection of your experience?
Meh. People get the bite size at first. If you don't know who I am at all, and you go, who's Kojey? And someone has to loosely describe me, they'd probably be like, oh, he makes... And then they get stuck. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, well, it's a bit like... Then they get stuck again. Then they just start listing off things that they think sounds close to it. Then they go, but then it's not like rubbish. He's not talking rubbish. It's like poetry. But so like, is it conscious? It's like, no, it's not conscious. But like he's not afraid. Like he'll talk about things that are political. I'll say he's political. I'd be like, well, yeah, but no. Like, do you get me? Like the songs that I wrote that were like more politically charged never had political intent. So to me, they're not political songs. If you look at the context in which most of these songs were written, they were all written with purpose. So I'm guessing the ones that people list off, Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah I wrote because at the time, that whole project in the context was about me becoming closer with my dad and understanding more about Ghana and his process of migration. So as I was turning 23 on that project, when he was 23, that was when Ghana was made independent, and he was standing there at the speech when Kwame Nkrumah said, today Ghana is free forever. So that is an important moment to him. So now I'm like, well, that seems like a pretty big moment in history. How come I don't know that much about it? I'm going, well, obviously it weren't taught to me in school, so now I have to educate myself. So in the process of educating myself on who he is and his policies and all the things that happened, I see likenesses. And I feel like maybe, like if I could be in his head, what would I feel like? When I said they feel like they're Tony Montana, I feel like I'm Kwame Nkrumah. That was like literal. It was like I'm learning about this guy, and I feel like him. Like I feel like I have the potential to really spark a change for free thinking, and not in a Kanye sense, but just like actually just like thinking. And then it come out, and it was like political song, and I was like, okay. And then what? Like Open Hand. I wrote at the time of the elections, I think, when just before we got made into like both sides. And what's the one they Coalition.
Yeah. So we're talking like what must be 5 years ago.
Yeah,
now?
Ages ago. I wrote Open Hand ages ago, and people still reference it as he's a political artist. I guess that was 5 years ago. Yeah, Coalition just happened, but for me, that's when I started to see. It was almost like I predicted the future. I foresaw all of these seeds of hate that will grow and grow and grow and grow and grow to the point where now politics is about separating people. And I wanted to make a song that people could use as like a mantra for not believing in that. And so yeah, that was 5 years ago. Kwame Nkrumah was like maybe 3 years ago or something like that. I'll say political things. Like, I'm not afraid. Like, I know what world I live in, and really, music is my last outlet to just like say what I fucking feel. But I'm not here to be like the token political artist, because certain political issues, again, let's not act ignorant. All political issues affect me, but some are gonna come to mind way quicker than others because of the experience I live in my day-to-day life. So if they come out, I want them to come out as easy as conversation, because in conversation, people might talk about political things. It doesn't necessarily make them instantly a political person. You feel me? It just means we all have, existing is political.
It came up in that conversation you had with Spike Lee, and but you both put it really nicely.
Yeah, 100%.
Everybody's making a political decision when they make art and share it with other people, even if you decide that it doesn't address politics directly, you're still making that decision.
Even if you decide not to vote, it's a political decision.
Well, listen, Kojey, really good to chat to you.
All good.
We should stop this podcast and get brainstorming our documentary series.
Doc series.
On where should we go first?
Kenya.
Kenyan grime. Okay, so just watch this space. That's going to be coming. And thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Midnight Chats is a loud and quiet podcast. Music courtesy of Gold Panda. Search Midnight Chats on iTunes for more episodes and to subscribe. For more information, visit loudandquiet.com.